Hello and welcome to a fragmented review on the edge. So what we have here is the Bestech Shrapnel. There we go. And what is shrapnel? Well, it is fragments thrown out by an explosion. It can also, of course, refer to loose change. When you've got loose change in your pocket, yeah, we sort of colloquially refer to that as shrapnel as well, the less lethal type anyway. Right, so this is a in-house Bestech knife. So I'm not going to be speaking about any designers, so I'm going to lay that down there and launch straight into the usual, and that is materials, dimensions, and weight, and then design and attributes of this very angular and stabby looking knife. So what we have here, generally very good materials on this knife. We've got blade steel of CPM S35 VN, nice premium steel there. Handle is titanium, the clip is milled titanium, the backspacer, that is also titanium, and then the pivot and the screws, those are stainless steel, and then the pivot assembly makes use of ceramic ball bearings. Right, dimensions. We've got a blade length of 86.8 millimeters, and that is 3.42 inches. Blade thickness is 3.8 millimeters, and that is 0.15 inches. Handle thickness 13.3 millimeters, and that is 0.15 inches. No, handle thickness is 13.3 millimeters, and that is 0.52 inches. Right, second time around. Closed length of the knife is 124 millimeters, and that is 4.88 inches. And then weight, and I have only for some reason got stated weight here in ounces, so I've got Bestech's stated weight of 4.6 ounces. Let's see that how that stacks up against my scale. Get that nicely lined up and on. And what are we on? We're on grams, so let's have a look at that. 131 grams, and that in ounces on my scale 4.7, and they said 4.6, so close enough, I think. So not a bad weight. It's not a light knife, but not a bad weight when you consider the size and construction of the knife. Might even be a little bit lighter than one would expect. So let's get this open. Let's try that again. Let's get this open and have a look. So this is one of those very sort of angular designed knives. You can see all over the place straight lines and sort of strange angles and cuts into the general shape of the knife. The blade is a drop point, and one of those blades that's sort of very close to being a clip point in some lights, and depending on what angle it sort of almost appears like a clip point blade. But a very stabby blade. That the blade in a two-tone finish, so we've got bead blast on the primary grind and on the swedge, and then we've got a satin finish on the sort of ricasso and flat area of the blade. Very tightly done. This particular knife got a few little flat spots, maybe little rolled edges on the edge of the knife, but going to be easy enough just to tidy that up. But in general, the finish, the uniformity of that edge, very tidy. Per wheeze, not we. Well, this Bestech knife is per wheeze, usual high standard. How about that? A little bit of a recovery. Behind that edge, we've got a big sharpening choil, and that acts as a forward finger choil as well, and I'll show you that when I get my fingers around the knife. And then we've got that big thumb hole that is sort of tapers towards the tip of the blade, and that very tidily done. When you look close at that, it's got the very thinnest but very neat little beveled edge on that. That swedge I mentioned just now, that runs from just in front of that thumb hole, and that almost all the way to the tip of the blade, stops just short of the tip of the blade, down there. Spine of the blade, that's also got the same width, beveled edge to the spine of the blade that you see on the thumb hole, and then a little bit of jimping towards the handle side where you would expect jimping on the spine of a blade. The flipper, very good looking. So it's one of those skeletonized flippers. You can see a little bit of jimping on the front of that, and it sort of resembles one of those skeletonized hammers you might find on a pistol. and quite a big flipper, but it does look very good. The shape of that and the fact that it's skeletonized does suit the general aesthetics of the knife. Let's get that open and look at the general shape of the knife. And this is where there's a little bit of weirdness to my eye. It just seems a little bit off aesthetically to me. And I'm going to lay this down there and tell you, try and sort of demonstrate what I mean. If I just unlock that blade and get the spine of the blade to line up with the spine of the handle, that really looks good to me. That to me is an extremely attractive knife. But now, how can I do this? When you move that blade into its completely open and locked position, to me, it just kind of looks like it's broken. But that, to my eye, anyway. So, like I say, that looks better to me than that. Anyway, there we go. So that bothers me a little bit, and I suppose it kind of makes sense. And maybe I'll show that when I get my hands around the knife and start speaking about the ergos. So let's look at that handle. So the handle again, all these sort of angular cuts into it, and these cuts just below the pivot, those particularly look very good to me. So this little cut into the handle there and there, and then around the rest of the handle we've got quite a wide beveled edge, and that looks very good as well. The straight line, straight drop to the handle, and then another secondary drop around the back, a few little curved lines around, but generally straight lines everywhere. This particular knife finished in that bronze, or maybe it's more kind of gold finish. They do describe it as a stonewash, but it looks kind of flat to me, and I've seen pictures of the other versions of the knife, the gray and the green version of the handle, and those look far more stonewashed to my eye anyway. And then those other versions, the gray handled version has a blue pocket clip and blue surround on that pivot cap, and then the green version has a bronzed pocket clip and a little bronze surround around that pivot cap. Right, let's have a look at that backspacer. So we've got the big titanium backspacer with jimping in inverted commas on that. So I think more for styling than anything else, because that backspacer sits just below the surface of the frame of the handle, so it doesn't really give you any grip, and it's sort of a little bit rounded, that jimping as well, but it does look very, very good. The pocket clip, let's have a look at that quickly. So that is tip up carry, and it is right hand only, and definitely not very deep carry. I mentioned the fact that it is a milled titanium clip, and that nicely styled, not too much space behind that, and that in your pocket is sort of going to sit like that. So you'll see the pocket clip, and then you're going to see a lot of that knife sticking out. The lock, we've got standard frame lock. It's got the stainless steel insert, so you get the stainless steel on stainless steel lockup, and it has the little over travel stop on that, so that all the standard fare. And then these pivot caps, I've seen these pivot caps pop up on quite a few Bestech knives, so they seem to reuse some of their hardware. I suppose a little bit of a cost saving exercise there, but it does look very good on this knife as well. Right, what else in terms of aesthetics? Well, in terms of aesthetics and practicality, we've got these lines, these ridges that have been milled into that handle, and that obviously helps to give a little bit of grip on that handle, as well as it looking very good and suiting the aesthetics of the knife. So the knife in hand, that in my medium-sized hands, and I wear a large glove, you can see that it is not a small knife, considerable space behind there, so bigger mittens, you're also going to get onto this knife very comfortably. And with those beveled edges, those wide bevels, and the general shape of that handle, that is incredibly comfortable in your hand. So that drop and secondary drop fits very nicely into the palm of your hand. And then when you move forward onto that forward finger choil, that's what that looks like when you're choking up on the blade. So generally, like I say, ergos really do feel very, very good on the knife. And then either way you get that in hand, your thumb falls very naturally onto that jimped area, and that when you choke up as well. And I suppose that's where the angled spine of the blade makes a little bit of a sense, because it provides a little bit of a ramp for your thumb there. And then I wanted to show this as well. So I'm going to, I think I've got the box here somewhere. Yeah, I'll just pull this box out here. This is the older style Bestech knife. So this is a knife that has been out for a while, but a good looking knife, and got it in my hand and did want to bring it onto the channel. But how that works, I suppose, with that blade sort of angling back, that general angle of handle, that relationship handle to blade. So when you get it in your hand like that, you can still pretty much get most of the edge of the knife onto a surface. I suppose in that sense it makes a bit of sense, but from an aesthetic perspective, as I say, I still think that looks better than that. Right, what else? Let's have a look inside that handle, see if we can get some light there. You can see that titanium slab on either side, quite a bit being milled away, and that an attempt to save a bit of weight on the knife, and that on both sides are less obviously taken away on the lock side of the handle. And I think that just about covers off everything. Did I point out the little blue surround on this version? I mentioned the other versions and the colors that they have, but we've got that little blue surround on that pivot cap, and that also just adds a little bit of a pop of color, and that looks very, very good as well. Other thing I didn't mention is the lanyard hole. So that lanyard hole perfectly round, and that done at that corner of that second drop to the handle, and that drilled right through the titanium frame and through that back spacer. In general, very, very nicely made knives. Bestech knives do tend to be blade centering is perfect. So the general aesthetics of the knife and the build quality really very, very good. We looked at the fact that it's got a flipper and you've got that thumb hole. So in terms of deployment, you can obviously get hold of that flipper, and that works very, very nice. A little bit of a drop shuddy blade as well, I suppose, as one can expect from ceramic ball bearings. And then that thumb hole, you can get your middle finger in there, and that flicks out beautifully as well. Detent's pretty decent too. Nice click. You have that little metal ding that I like so much as that closes. So all good on that front as well. So let me get the knife open. Quite interesting, the finish, this gold or bronze finish on this. I did notice then when your hands are a little bit clammy or sweaty or a little bit of oil on it, that gold color or bronze color tends to show fingerprints pretty easily, and actually changes color. The tone of the gold sort of or bronze changes a little bit when it gets slightly damp as well. Right, now let me lay this down there and do what I normally do around this stage, and that is just to give my gratitude to Blades and Triggers. So here, another knife that has been supplied by them. Always appreciate their ongoing support of the channel. So check this and other Bestech knives and other brands of knives and other tactical goodies out on their website, and that is BNT Online. And that now leaves me to do a little bit of size comparisons, and I brought another knife on here for a change, and this is a rake knife, not a brand. I don't think I've ever reviewed a rake knife, maybe brought one or two on for size comparisons, but I brought this one on. Let me flip it that way, because it also has sort of that angled shape to the handle, those sort of beveled edges and those cuts on that, and it sort of reminded me a little bit of the Bestech knife, so I thought I'd bring that out as well. And this is the Rake P135-SF for those who are interested. So one of those catchy names. Rake always tend to give these very catchy names to knives anyway. So there we go. You can see a size comparison of keep on wanting to bring that blade down. Size comparison of those two. Right, let's get that out of the way and then use my usual knives. Let's start with this because it is still on the desk, and this is the Medford Slim Midi. Give you some sense of scale on that. Right, and then the what is this, Spyderco Manix 2, and those in terms of length, I suppose general size are very, very similar. And then this knife that I think a lot of people do know, you see these out in the wild a lot, a popular knife, and this is the Spyderco PM3, the smaller version of the PM. Give you some scale there too. And then the last knife, and I have to say it's a knife that I do use because it has been out for so long, and if you like knives, you should be familiar with that knife, and that is the Benchmade Mini Barrage. So some perspective there as well. Right, and I think that's just about it. So my general thoughts on the knife. It is a goodie, nicely made, generally a good looking knife. I like the shape of the blade. I like what they've done on the handle. The build quality really very nicely done. Really do like that skeletonized flipper. I wonder why people don't do that more often. It really does look very, very good. And then great action on this knife as well. It's the aesthetics to me, and let me try to do it one more time. Let me do it this time on the lock side. That, to me, lining up the spine of the blade and the spine of the handle, that looks spectacularly good to me. That is really a good looking knife to my eye. And then you kind of go dunk, and then that just looks a little bit wrong to me. Maybe that really works for you, and maybe you understand and like that practicality of having that relationship between handle and blade. And if you do, well, it's one to look out for. As I say, it's a knife that has been out for a long time, but it really is a nicely made and generally good looking knife. And I guess that is that. So that was the Bestech Shrapnel, guys, and all that really leaves me to do is thank you for joining me once again. Really do appreciate it when you do share your time with me, and would equally appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I release a new video, because I really would love you to join me more often. And if you did enjoy the review, please do give it a like, a thumbs up. It does help with the algorithms. And other than that, you go well, and God bless.